Hey, this is Lisa Graves with Legal AF here to talk about a hot take from this weekend. I know there's so much news happening so fast that it's hard to keep track, but one of the things that struck me this weekend was the release of remarks by President Donald Trump in Saudi Arabia about the Secretary of Transportation for the United States of America. I don't know if you knew this before this weekend or even now, that it turns out that Trump is touting our Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, because he was a lumberjack. Um, you may be thinking, what does being a lumberjack have to do with running the Department of Transportation, which manages all sorts of important things for our safety, like airplanes, the air traffic controllers, highways, trains, and more? What does being a lumberjack have to do with any of it? Nothing, unless you're Trump. So let's unpack this and actually what's going on in the Department of Transportation and why these bizarre remarks by Donald Trump are so concerning. So just to recap, thank you for coming to Legal AF. I hope you'll subscribe and share. Let's get into this issue of Donald Trump and his fascination with Sean Duffy. So, as many of you know, earlier this year, Donald Trump named Sean Duffy to helm the U.S. Department of Transportation, that was previously led by Pete Buttigieg under the Biden administration. So, we have a new Secretary of Transportation. He was formerly a congressman from Wisconsin and represented part of the northern part of the state. And many Wisconsinites knew that he had this sort of history in lumberjack sports, which again, you may not have realized is a thing, but in northern Wisconsin and other parts of North America, there are these lumberjack competitions. And it turns out that Sean Duffy, our transportation secretary, when he was a kid, starting, when he was 5 and 7, started doing log rolling and also was in speed climbing of trees. And after he graduated from college, he spent the summers for a couple of years before law school actually helping to manage lumberjack competitions. And so, this is a guy who in his teens and early 20s was competing in lumberjack events. He went to law school eventually. In the middle of that time, he also was on MTV in MTV's Rural World from Boston. So he's a reality TV personality guy, then came back to Wisconsin and worked as a district attorney in a small county with a small crime rate before running for David Obey's seat in Congress, winning that. And then, leaving Congress, he ended up getting a little bit richer, I would say, in part through a bunch of consulting gigs, including one for Fox. He was a Fox personality. I'm sure that's probably where he attracted Trump's attention. In his most recent financial disclosures for this job at the Department of Transportation, Sean Duffy reports a lot of income from his consulting practice, including over $500,000 as a part-time host for Fox, one of the Fox channels and a Fox program. But that's not what happened this weekend. What happened this weekend was that President Trump was in Saudi Arabia, and for some reason, I'm sure we can speculate the reasons why Trump says things or does things, but he started talking abroad about how great it was that Sean Duffy is the Secretary of Transportation because he was a champion tree climber. He apparently, about 30 some years ago, when he was a much younger man, was good at climbing an 80 or 60 foot tree in competition quickly. That is fine. People do all sorts of interesting sports, but it literally has nothing to do with running our Department of Transportation. But for Trump, it was some sort of signifier of what a manly man this guy is and why he should be entrusted to run America's transportation department. Donald Trump also then made comments about his criticism of Pete Buttigieg for bicycling to work at the Department of Transportation. Pete Buttigieg, was living in the District of Columbia, was near his office, bike to work. That seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do, but not if you're Donald Trump. And instead, somehow that's disqualifying. But being a lumberjack, a teenage lumberjack, is. Now, to be fair, it looks like the most recent episode of Sean Duffy's lumberjacking days was about over 20 years ago, and so it's been a long time, and so it wouldn't have been germane then, but it really is less germane as each year goes by, if that's even possible. But what Sean Duffy has been up to at the Department of Transportation is of concern, and that's also what I want to talk to you about today. So one of the things that has happened early in this administration is just the chainsaw of Elon Musk, his attempts to and actions to try to cut spending at all these agencies in all these irrational ways, including targeting the Department of Transportation and including targeting for firing, I think over 400 transportation officials, including some that work around maintenance issues, for the airlines. Now, that's not the same as firing an air traffic controller or firing someone who does the safety check on a plane. But in essence, we have had an agency with the Department of Transportation where we actually need to be investing more of our resources into making sure that our air traffic controls, our airplanes are as safe as possible, not cutting around the edges of that program or undermining the programs that are underway. And we've seen some of the results of, I wouldn't say the DOJ's cuts so far, but we've seen what's been happening to the safety of our transportation in this country where we've had outages, at the Newark airport. We've had crashes that have been obviously very upsetting tragedies. And instead of having a department that seems committed to really ensuring that these public benefits, that this public interest activity in terms of our safety is fully funded, instead, as with all of Trump's agency efforts, they're trying to cut costs everywhere. And just this week, DOJ announced another round of cuts to key offices within the Department of Transportation. That's not all. We've seen that Elon Musk wants to get his hands on actually having his companies operate air traffic control in this country. His companies that include companies where, the cars sometimes explode, where Consumer Reports, has given Elon Musk's Cybertruck one of the worst ratings it's ever given a car or truck in its history, where we have, these rockets, this rocket ship ambition for Elon to go to Mars, all this self-interest that is piling on. And then you have Elon Musk trying to get his hands, along with his minions' hands, on basically taking over the FAA. He also indicated just this past week or so that he wants to privatize Amtrak, the nation's passenger rail service. This is also a longtime goal of Charles Koch, the right-wing billionaire who has, invested deeply in the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian strand of the Republican Party. Elon Musk has also been the subject of, through his companies, of investigations, including investigations by the FAA about how Elon Musk's SpaceX programs were not complying with safety standards in their launches. In addition to other investigations by NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety Agency or Administration, that has been looking at self-driving vehicles and concerns about other market activities, in essence, of Elon Musk in the products that he wants to sell the American people. And then most recently, just this past weekend, as a side note, this past week, there was a terrific article in ProPublica that was really outrageous about how Elon Musk and this administration, the Trump administration, is pressuring companies in Africa to take up Elon Musk's his satellites for communications as their satellites. And so we've already seen concerns over the past few years about the fact that that Starlink, Elon Musk's company, was potentially tied in with Russia, even though Ukraine was reliant on those, on Starlink for its communications. And so you have a billionaire, the richest guy in the world, who is trying to expand his business, and this administration is trying to help him. And one of the ways it's trying to help him is through making changes to our infrastructure at the Department of Transportation, and possibly get his hands on contracts to fuel any number of his businesses, including SpaceX, including Starlink, and more. But that's not all. We also have, a need for real investment in our air traffic control systems. This is an area where there's old technology, as we're seeing play out in Newark, New Jersey, at that airport, but where we need to have substantial investments. And while Sean Duffy has been playing the blame game, trying to blame his predecessor, Pete Buttigieg, for the current situation, the reality is that Biden sought to increase infrastructure investment in the United States, including efforts by Pete Buttigieg to try to get more money to invest in the recruitment of more air traffic controllers, because we need more of them to help keep our people safe, to help keep people who are traveling here safe, using our airlines and more. And so there are a number of things that could be done, but the Republicans in Congress were also trying to inhibit the ability to have this major investment in revamping and modernizing our infrastructure. Now, there was a bipartisan bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, that did have a substantial amount of investment in infrastructure, but there was more proposed that was not approved to improve the safety of our transportation in this country. And then I'll end on this note. I'll guess, one of the things that has also been surprising me. So you have Sean Duffy, former reality TV star, Fox host, way back when someone who helped set up lumberjack competitions, who competed as a teen and as a young man, perhaps up to around age 30, in lumberjacking sports. He married one of his co-stars on one of these reality TV shows, Rachel Campos Duffy. They have a number of children, big family. They're very active in their communities, and we had an announcement, I think it was in March, by Sean Duffy, that he wanted to tie highway funds not to the actual transportation needs of the American people, not to how busy is your state, how busy are your highways, how populous is your city, but to the birth rates of different communities. And so he's proposing allocating highway funds more funds to states where the average number of children is higher than states where the average number of children is lower, meaning the birth rate of people in the United States, which is, again, going back to this obsession of the Trump administration with birth rate, with fertility rates, predominantly of white Americans. To be clear, a lot of that fertility talk is really about this sort of white nationalism subtext. But the idea that our highway funds would not be allocated based on the needs of the state in terms of the populations of the state, but instead they would factor in the number of children people are having, is really astonishing. And this comes at the same time as Duffy and the Trump administration and the Republican Party and Charles Koch have been trying to actually switch over our highways from free highways for Americans as part of our national highway system into tolled highways where they call it, paying a user fee. So if you're using that highway, you have to pay this fee. Well, that is right out of the Koch playbook for privatization. Rather than having public assets that serve us all, everything becomes a way to monetize our public services for private gain. And that's what that tolling operation, these tolling companies around the country have been doing in these tolling operations, where a lot of these toll highways aren't even predominantly owned by U.S. companies or the state. They're owned by foreign firms like Macquarie Capital in Australia. There's a big firm in Spain called Centra that owns, key interests in U.S. toll roads. So, this issue, what should our public policy be in 2025, 26, 27, 28? How much should we be investing in alternatives like EVs? I know Elon Musk obviously is in the business of selling EVs, but there's obviously more to it than that. How much should we be making sure that we have a great train system or a great rail system that we do on the East Coast, really investing in modernizing that? How can we make sure that we have a whole pipeline of amazing, really talented, devoted air traffic controllers who have one of the most stressful jobs in the country? How can we make sure our planes are safe, that we have these investments? These are serious matters for our public to thrive, for our country to thrive. And yet, when you look at what happened this weekend, you see that Donald Trump is trying to assert, bizarrely, to foreign officials that U.S. transportation policy is awesome because the guy he chose to put in charge used to speed climb up a 60-foot pine to win competitive lumberjack events, that's really what matters. And I'm here to tell you that's not what matters at all. A whole lot of other things are at stake. We have a lot of things happening with the implementation of Project 2025, with this Koch agenda, with this right-wing agenda, with the destruction that Elon Musk and his minions continue to play in our national government and also in our lives. And those are the things that matter. So thank you so much for coming over here to Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network. I'm Lisa Graves and look forward to seeing you again soon.
I'm Michael Popak, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popak Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popak Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popak Firm today at 1-877-POPAK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopakfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popak Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.